Hello students, hope you all are keeping fine. Today we are going to study about a new topic, chemical equations. All of you look on that equation, magnesium plus oxygen which gives magnesium oxide. This equation can be represented as a word form. The equation which can be represented as a word form, this type of equation is known as chemical equations. The equations which can be represented as a word form, this type of equation is known as word equation. Okay, then what do you mean by a chemical equation? The symbolic representation of a chemical reaction is known as chemical equation. The symbolic representation of a chemical reaction is known as chemical equation. Which means this word equation we can be represented as Mg plus O2 gives 2MgO. Okay. This type of equation is known as chemical equation. All of you look on that note. Chemical equations. The symbolic representation of chemical reaction is called chemical equation. There are two types of chemical equations. Balanced chemical equation and unbalanced chemical equations. There are two types of chemical equations. Balanced chemical equations and an unbalanced chemical equations. Okay. Once more, the symbolic representation of chemical reaction is known as chemical equations. For example, Mg plus O2 gives 2MgO. Or H2 plus O2 gives 2H2O. This type of equation is known as chemical equations. There are two types of chemical equations. Balanced chemical equations and an unbalanced chemical equations. What do you mean by a balanced chemical equation? A balanced chemical equation has the number of atoms on the element equal on both sides, which means the number of elements of the reactant side and the product side will be same. Okay, in the balanced chemical equation, the number of atoms of elements in the reactant side and the product side will be the same. For example, we have look on the equation that zinc plus sulfuric acid which gives zinc sulfate plus hydrogen. Here zinc and H2SO4 are reactants and zinc sulfate and hydrogen is the product. Yes, zinc and H2SO4 is the reactant and zinc sulfate and hydrogen are the products. Now calculate how many atoms present in the reactant, zinc atoms present in the reactant side? 1. The product side? 1. Then hydrogen atom in the reactant side? 2. The product side? 2. Sulfur atom in the reactant side? 1. In the product side? 1. Oxygen atom in the reactant side? 4. In the product side? 4. This means that in this equation, the zinc, hydrogen, sulfur and oxygen atoms will be the same number in the reactant and product side. Okay, the number of zinc, hydrogen, sulfur and oxygen in the reactant side and the product side will be same. This type of equation is known as balanced chemical equations. Then what do you mean by an unbalanced chemical equations? The unbalanced chemical equations, the number of atoms of element in the reactant side is not equal to that of the number of atoms of elements in the product side. Once more, an unbalanced chemical equation, the number of atoms of elements in the reactant side is not equal to that of the number of atoms of elements in the product side. Suppose you have to look on that equation, Fe plus H2 gives Fe3O4 plus H2. Here Fe and H2O are the reactants. Here Fe and H2O are the reactants and Fe3O4 and H2 are the products. How many Fe atoms in the reactant side? Only 1. How many Fe atoms in the product side? 3. Then hydrogen atom in the reactant side? 2. Product side? 2. Oxygen atom in the reactant side? 4. The product side? Sorry, in the reactant side 1 and in the product side 4. So, the number of iron, hydrogen and oxygen atoms in the reactant side and the product side will be different. This type of equation is known as unbalanced chemical equations or skeletal chemical equations. Okay, unbalanced chemical equations or skeletal chemical equations. Then, how to represent a chemical equation? The chemical reaction which can be represented in a symbolic way, which means that magnesium plus oxygen which gives MgO, Mg plus O2 gives MgO. Okay. This we have to look on how to balance a chemical equation. How to balance a chemical equation. There is a law which follows to balance a chemical equation. The law is law of conservation of mass. All of you look on that note. State the law which is followed in balancing a chemical equation. The law is law of conservation of mass. This law states that mass can neither be created nor be destroyed in a chemical reaction. The law states that mass can neither be created nor be destroyed in a chemical reaction. Okay, this law you can study it in your previous classes. From here, you can see that an equation, this type of equation is known as word equation, and this type of equation is known as chemical equation. Okay, from this equation first you have to balance it. You can draw a circular box around each element, and then after that you can draw 3 columns. After that you can draw 3 columns. In the first column you can write elements. You can write elements. And in the second column you have to write number of atoms in reactant side. And in the third column you can write number of atoms in products. Okay, the first column you can write elements. In the second column you can write the number of atoms in reactant side, and in the third column you can write the number of atoms in the product side. In this equation, the number of zinc in the reactant side is 1 and in the product side is 1. The number of reactants in the hydrogen in the reactant side is 2 and in the product side is 2. Sulfur is 1, in the product side is 1, and oxygen in the reactant side is 4 and in the product side is 4, which means that here the zinc in the reactant side and in the product side, zinc, hydrogen, sulfur and oxygen will be the same. Okay, the number of zinc, hydrogen, sulfur and oxygen are in the product side and the reactant side will be same. So the equation is already balanced. So the equation is already balanced. Okay. We have to look on the next equation. Iron plus H2O gives Fe3O4 plus H2. From this equation you have to draw 3 columns. In the first column you have to write element, and in the second column you have to write number of elements in reactant side, and in the third column you have to write number of elements in the product side. Okay. From this, iron in the reactant side will be 1 and in the product side is 3. Okay. Hydrogen in the reactant side 2, product side 2. Oxygen in the reactant side 1 and in the product side 4. This means that the number of iron, hydrogen and oxygen in the reactant side and product side are different. So we have to balance this equation. Okay, on the next step, we will have to find out the maximum number of atoms present in this equation. On the next step, you have to find that the maximum number of atoms is present in this equation. In this equation, the maximum number of atom is Fe3O4. So we have to take Fe3O4 first. Okay. And then you have to calculate the number of oxygen in the right side and the left side. The reactant side oxygen is 1 and in the product side the oxygen is 4. So next we have to multiply H2O into 4. Then we got 4H2O. Then the number of oxygen in the reactant side and product side will be the same. Then our equation will become Fe plus 4H2O gives Fe3O4 plus H2. Okay. Then our equation will become Fe plus 4H2O gives Fe3O4 plus H2. From this equation, iron in the reactant side is 1 and in the product side is 3. So it is an unbalanced. Hydrogen in the reactant side will become 8 and in the product side is 2. That is also unbalanced. Oxygen in the reactant side is 4 and in the product side is 4. So oxygen is to be balanced here, but the iron and hydrogen is not balanced. So next we take hydrogen. Next we take hydrogen. And then we can to multiply 8 in 4H2O. We get 4 hydrogen is 8. This equation hydrogen is 8 in the reactant side, but in the product side the hydrogen is 2. So we can to multiply 4, we get 8 hydrogen. Okay, then the number of hydrogen in both sides will become equal. On the next step, you have to balance iron Fe on both sides become equal. So in Fe will be in 1 in the reactant side and in the product side will be in the 3. So we can multiply 3 Fe. We can get the product side and the reactant side will be same. The last step, all of you look on that. 3 Fe plus 4 H2O gives Fe3O4 plus 4 H2. Here the reactant side Fe is 3 and in the product side Fe is also become 3. The reactant side hydrogen is 8 and the product side is 8. The reactant side oxygen is 4 and in the product side is 4. Now the equation will become balanced here. Okay. All of you clear how to balance a chemical equation? First you have to draw 3 boxes and you have to write the number of elements, number of atoms present in the reactant side, number of atoms present in the product side. And after that you have to identify the maximum number of atoms present in that. In this equation the maximum number of atoms is Fe3O4. We have to select Fe3O4 and from here we can first balance the oxygen atom and after that we can take hydrogen atom and we can make equal in the both side of a number of hydrogen atom and after at last we have to select iron and also we can at last we can make the total number of iron, oxygen and hydrogen will be equal in the product side and the reactant side. The equation will be balanced. Okay. All of you study well. Stay safe. We will meet on the next class. Okay.